industry too. There's been a couple studies done on this, and the chemical industry and the pharmaceutical industry, both highly regulated industries, are the only ones, I believe, in which there is an effect of patents that's positive. And the only reason I believe that that effect is there is because of the regulation. Get rid of the regulations and you get rid of the need for patents. In fact, you won't want patents because you'll want to just be first to market. That'll be the only thing that'll matter. Yes?
Did you say there's a couple of pharmaceutical companies that benefit from that regulation?
Sure. You know, as we saw in an early slide, the question was, for those who didn't hear it, are there companies that benefit from these regulations? And the answer is yes, the big companies benefit because the smaller companies are put out of business. You know, you can't take $1 billion hit when at the last minute the FDA decides that they're not going to approve your drug unless you're big. So what's happening now in the industry is they're merging. Of course, as they merge, they lay people off, but they're merging and becoming a cartel. You know, basically the monopoly is starting. And it's become because the companies can't survive unless they merge. So that's what's happening there. Yes? Right, the question was, or the comment actually was that the court ruling for the Abigail Alliance only applies to the district in which it was, that the court ruled, and of course that was the District of Columbia. Yeah, well, and of course that's where the FDA is, so that kind of takes care of the whole country is my understanding. Now, the effort's not dead. You can go to the AbigailAlliance.org site and they're still fighting, and that's wonderful. But when you don't have a constitutional right to save your own life by buying something that might help you, it seems that there are forces at work here that have nothing to do with reason. Yes?
Okay, so maybe this is a question about those forces. Your argument is so persuasive that I can't imagine that there aren't 10%, 25% of the Congressional House of Representatives that would listen to you and want a strong example of government effectiveness. And this is it. This is it in a very powerful way. Why aren't we hearing this from some impassioned representatives?
Well, I think that the question was, why aren't we hearing this kind of stuff from an impassioned representative when all this information is out there? And we are. I mean, that's why Ron Paul is sponsoring that bill. But you see, you have to think of the mentality of the bureaucrat. Okay, so it's very easy for someone to come forward and say, oh, this drug hurt me. We need to do something about it to make it totally safe. And instead of saying to this person, drugs aren't totally safe. There are going to be problems. You know, you have to think before you take a drug. The FDA website actually, and I have a picture of this out in my Deadly Secrets pamphlet or booklet out there on my table. You can see a picture of the FDA website where it says, safe and effective drugs. Now, we just got done talking about how no drug is safe and effective, yet that's what the FDA is promising. And I think Congress wants to keep that image up because otherwise they're afraid people are going to say to them, oh, but I want it totally safe, do something. Well, the only way to make sure that there's only safe and effective drugs on the market is to make sure there are no drugs on the market. That's the only way to do it. And this is from somebody who's in the industry. Behind you, you had a question. Yes? That's my understanding. Let me repeat that, though, for those who didn't hear it. She said her understanding of the Obama stimulus bill is this cost effectiveness evaluation applies to everyone, not just people whose health care is paid for by tax money. And that's my understanding also, is that it's very broad. I think, let's go over this side of the room. This gentleman here.
On a similar note about the stimulus package, are you familiar with the electronic health record
Okay. The question is, what do I know about the health, the electronic health information system, and what will it have, effect will it have on small practices? Well, any regulation is going to hurt small businesses. That's just a given. I don't know the details of that other than to say that when all of your information is electronic, and it's in a database, which is what it's about, you know, then it's very easy for someone, either a hacker or your favorite government official, to find out, for example, that you need a particular drug to stay alive. And I can't imagine that being anything but detrimental to our freedom. Yes, in there.
You mentioned the AIDS patients being able to go overseas and get drugs, but then it seems that there's this movement now overseas to crack down on regulation. Given these large pharmaceutical companies, given that some of these drugs were for so many years available elsewhere, Canada, Mexico, cheaper because of the regulations here, how has that shifted? Because it doesn't seem like there aren't going to be any places to get cheaper drugs anymore as things centralize.
Right. The comment is, and the question is, you know, how is there going to be any place to get cheaper drugs or new drugs sooner if they're going to harmonize, basically? And the answer is there won't be. If this harmonization is successful, it'll really curtail our health. And we really won't have anywhere to go unless we're extremely rich and can bribe someone, or perhaps go to some Caribbean country which decides it's going to, you know, be a free health state or something. But the problem with that is our United States government has a long reach. And so this is why we need awareness and fighting on this. And this is an issue where we could take this up as a movement, as a party. I mean, this could be very big for us, because there are already a lot of people who feel very strongly. This was the biggest effort that Congress ever saw. This is not small, so it might be, we want to think about that. Yes?
I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with what the AARP has been doing, politicized over the past number of years, working with socialized medicine. I was wondering if you might be able to comment on the AMA and the AA, the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, the difference between them and how the AMA is becoming politicized too. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah. Well, you know, the question and comment is about the AMA and other groups and how they become politicized. The AMA really began the movement for what they called professional birth control back in the 30s. What they did is they wanted regulations governing physicians, and they wanted to control the medical schools through these governing boards, approval boards. And they were successful, and they reduced the number of physicians down very far, and the reason they wanted to do that was so the price that the physicians could charge could go up. And they were very successful at that. And that's, I think just now they're starting to wake up to the fact that they may have hung themselves, because of course now a lot of physicians are saying, I can't afford to have a practice anymore with all of the legal liability that I have from these lawsuits. That's a whole other story. And I can't afford Medicare patients anymore because the government's now cut back on what they're going to pay me. And if I take Medicare patients, I can't take patients that pay me cash. So, you know, there's a lot of difficulty there. And I hope they're going to wake up. Now, the American Association for Physicians and Surgeons is a much different organization. It's for freedom in medicine, and it's out of Tucson, I believe. Could someone bring me my water, please? And that's a great group. They understand. And there's somebody that, if you aren't aware of, you should be. I think it's aapsonline.org. And they're a great group. They have a great newsletter. And they have lots of book reviews on books that you'll want to know about and avoid. Any other questions? Yes, in the back.
Yeah, I was wondering if you're familiar with MAPS and where you think the MAPS model and psychedelic drugs fit into the regulatory system?
What is the MAPS model? I'm not familiar with the acronym.
Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. They've been conducting studies, barely getting government approval, but occasionally getting government approval for the administration of psychedelic drugs, mostly in the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder.